My wife's mentally ill sister tried to break us up by claiming my wife was cheating. Turns out, she was telling the truth. But me and my wife still got a restraining order against her and rebuilt our relationship. I was at a family BBQ when my son suddenly wanted to know about my man juice. It started off as any old day. We were having dinner with my in-laws, chopping it up and cooking steak. It was essentially the white picket fence dream I'd always wanted. Me and my son were alone toasting marshmallows in the living room, talking about, well, whatever it is 7-year-olds talk about. And out of nowhere, he asked me what a donor is. I was taken aback and asked if he had learned that word in school. He shook his head and told me Aunt Ashley had said it to my wife, her sister, and when he asked what it meant, she told him he'd learn when he's older. An answer that never satiated my son Mikey. Well, I had a pretty strict no-lying policy, so I told him the truth. Watered down, of course. "Oh!" he shouted, while violently nodding his head. I smiled at his childish curiosity, but that's when he told me something that would ruin my marriage and change my life forever. "Daddy, are you mad at me? Mommy told me I'm not allowed to ask you questions anymore." He said it in such a shy, timid voice it broke my heart. But just before I could ask why he thinks that, his mom came in and kissed me. It melted me in the way it always does, and in the moment, I completely forgot what we were talking about. My son ran outside, and my beautiful wife told me how grateful she was to be with me. She reminded me that this is the life we always said we wanted, ever since we started dating in college. I smiled, and we reminisced about our first date together, how hard I tried to impress her, how I pretended to like every song she played, and how she added them to a playlist that she played 24/7 until I finally confessed 3 years later. We kissed, and it still felt as electric to me as the first day we met. We went outside and played with our son before going home and heading to bed, but while I lay there, with my arms around her, I couldn't shake this nagging feeling in my chest, because whenever I was around, my wife always encouraged my son to ask questions. We had decided a long time ago not to cut our son's childhood short like ours was. None of the puzzle pieces were clicking. I knew my only option was to confront my son directly. So the next day, while my wife was at her Pilates class, that's exactly what I did. After a lot of ums and I don't knows, Mikey finally spit it out. Well, kinda. He told me that Ashley and my wife were joking about how good of a donor Robert was. My heart dropped to the pit of my stomach. I plastered on a huge fake smile and told him that was just something adults say around their friends, and when he's older, he can say it too. I could feel the beads of sweat rolling down my forehead, but he just shrugged his shoulders and went back to playing with his cars. You see, Rob was my wife's first boyfriend in high school. He was the only guy before me, and he lived in Australia while we lived in Cali. I panicked and immediately ordered a paternity test. The days waiting for the lab results were hell. Things just weren't adding up. By that point, Rob had been out of the picture for over a decade. Like, there's just no way, right? And second, our son looked just like me. He literally had my exact eye color, hazel green, and nose bridge, or so I thought. Because after 2 weeks, the results arrived. He wasn't mine. But when my wife gave me her explanation, I wasn't even mad. In fact, I was even happier, getting to keep our family together and raise Mikey. When Sarah got home that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the test results printed out. She took one look at my face and knew something was seriously wrong. "We need to talk," I said. Her eyes went to the papers, then back to me. "What's that?" "Mikey isn't mine." My voice sounded strange even to myself. "Is he Robert's?" The color drained from her face. She sat down hard in the chair across from me. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then she nodded. "I need you to explain," I said. "And don't lie to me." She took a deep breath. "It's not what you think. Robert wasn't back in the picture when I got pregnant. I never cheated on you." I just stared at her, waiting. "Remember when we first started trying for a baby, and nothing was happening?" She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "We went to that fertility doctor, Dr. Quinn." I nodded stiffly. "We tried for almost 2 years before Mikey came along. They ran all those tests on both of us," she continued. "And they found issues with your sperm count. Remember? They said our chances were very low." I did remember. I'd been devastated. "What you don't know is that I went back alone." I asked about other options. Dr. Quinn mentioned sperm donors. My head was spinning. "You used a donor without telling me?" She was crying now. "I was desperate for a baby. For our baby. I knew how much you wanted to be a father. And I thought if I used someone who looked like you, so you picked your ex-boyfriend?" My voice rose despite myself. "No. God, no. It was completely anonymous. I never knew who the donor was." I pointed to the papers. "Then explain what Mikey overheard. About Robert being a good donor." Sarah wiped her eyes. "That was about Robert Miller, Ashley's co-worker. He donated bone marrow to his niece. We were talking about how brave he was." The explanation hit me like a truck. It made perfect sense. Ashley worked at a pediatric hospital. They'd been having a normal conversation, and my paranoid brain had jumped to the worst conclusion. "But Mikey said Ashley told him not to ask me questions," I said, still needing to understand. Sarah looked confused. "I would never tell him that. Never. That doesn't make any sense. You know how important open communication is to both of us." We talked for hours that night. We cried. We fought. But in the end, I realized something important. Mikey was my son. Biology be damned. I'd raised him. I loved him. Nothing could change that. Sarah and I still had a lot to work through. The lie had damaged our trust. But when I looked at our family, the one we'd built together, I knew it was worth fighting for. The decision to forgive Sarah was the hardest I'd ever made. But seeing Mikey's face light up when I came home from work that evening, yelling "Daddy!" and launching himself into my arms, how could I walk away from that? I told Sarah we'd work through this together, but we needed complete honesty moving forward. For a few weeks, things seemed okay. We went to a marriage counselor, Dr. Jennifer, who specialized in family secrets and rebuilding trust. She had a warm office with comfortable chairs and gentle lighting that somehow made difficult conversations feel less threatening. Sarah patiently answered all my questions about the donor process. I learned she'd chosen someone with my physical characteristics, height, eye color, even my damn blood type. She'd thought of everything except telling me the truth. I just wanted us to have our family, she kept saying, tears streaming down her face. I was afraid you'd leave if I told you we needed a donor. Honestly, that hurt worse than the lie itself. Did she really think I was that shallow? But Dr. Jennifer helped me understand Sarah's fear came from her own father abandoning her mother when things got tough. Old wounds sometimes make us do crazy things. One night, after a particularly intense therapy session, we came home exhausted, but feeling closer. The session had focused on vulnerability and how fear of rejection often leads to destructive behaviors. Dr. Jennifer had guided us through some difficult conversations with remarkable skill. Sarah fell asleep on my chest while watching TV. I gently moved her hair from her face, thinking maybe we'd actually make it through this. Then her phone buzzed on the coffee table. I shouldn't have looked. We were trying to rebuild trust, and here I was immediately breaking it. But after everything, my curiosity got the better of me. The notification showed a text from Ashley. Did he believe the Robert Miller story? My blood ran cold. I carefully slid out from under Sarah, grabbed her phone, and took it to the bathroom. I hesitated for a full minute before opening the message. The passcode was Mikey's birthday, same as always. Inside was a whole conversation that confirmed my worst fears. Ashley, did he believe the Robert Miller story? Sarah, hook, line and sinker. He's such a good guy. Ashley, thank God. Rob would freak if he knew someone was asking questions. Sarah, I know, but we're good now. Crisis averted. I scrolled up to see more, but the conversation had been deleted before that point. I put the phone back exactly where it was and went to our guest bedroom. I couldn't sleep next to her that night. The ceiling fan spun lazily above me as I stared upward, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. The next morning, I called in sick to work and waited for Sarah to leave for her dental appointment. Through the kitchen window, I watched her car pull out of the driveway and disappear down the street. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I started searching through everything. Her email, her dresser drawers, even the storage boxes in our attic. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it. Hidden inside an old college textbook was a stack of letters, actual handwritten letters, all from Robert. They weren't dated recently. Most were from around the time Sarah got pregnant with Mikey, but they made it crystal clear. Robert hadn't just been a sperm donor. He had been very much in the picture. I miss your body pressed against mine, one letter read. Sydney is beautiful, but empty without you. I can't wait for you to visit again. Another mentioned, our weekend in San Diego was perfect. I keep thinking about starting a life together. The worst one, I know it's complicated with him, but this baby changes everything. We need to talk about our future. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. San Diego? When had she gone to San Diego? Then it clicked. Her girls' weekend with Ashley about 8 years ago, right around the time she would have gotten pregnant with Mikey. I took pictures of all the letters with my phone, then put everything back exactly as I'd found it. When Sarah came home that night, I acted normal, or as normal as possible when your entire life feels like it's crumbling beneath your feet. That night, I texted Ashley from my phone. We need to talk. Alone. It's important. She responded immediately. Everything okay? Sarah's phone died and she's in the bath. Just brother-in-law stuff. Meet for coffee tomorrow? That place near your work at 10? Sure thing. The next morning, I sat waiting at the coffee shop, rehearsing what I'd say. The cafe was bustling with the morning crowd, the air filled with the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee beans and the gentle hum of conversation. Ashley walked in, looking completely relaxed, ordered her usual complicated latte, then slid into the booth across from me. So what's up? She asked, stirring her coffee. You're being mysterious. I placed my phone on the table, screen up, showing one of Robert's letters. I know about Robert. The real Robert. The color drained from her face. Where did you get that? Doesn't matter. What matters is you and Sarah have been lying to me for years. Ashley's eyes darted around the cafe like she was looking for an escape route. Finally, she sighed. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Because right now I'm thinking my wife cheated on me with her ex, got pregnant, and passed his kid off as mine for 7 years. Ashley leaned forward. You weren't supposed to find out this way. I wasn't supposed to find out at all, I said, my voice harder than I intended. Look, Sarah loves you. She's always loved you. The thing with Robert, it was a mistake. One weekend of stupidity. I laughed bitterly. A weekend that resulted in my son. Your son, Ashley emphasized. You're his dad. You've always been his dad. Stop with the sentimental bullshit and tell me what happened. Ashley took a deep breath. We went to San Diego for that weekend, remember? Sarah was devastated about the fertility issues. You guys had been trying for so long. She was in a really bad place. So she called up her ex-boyfriend? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. No, it was coincidence. We ran into him at this bar. He was in California for work. One thing led to another. She trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. And Sarah slept with him. I finished flatly. Ashley nodded. She was drunk and emotional. She regretted it immediately. Then when she found out she was pregnant, she panicked. So she made up the whole sperm donor story? Why not just tell me the truth? Ashley looked at me like I was stupid. Because she knew it would destroy your marriage. She made a terrible mistake, but she loves you. She wanted your family together. Our family built on lies. I stood up, tossing some cash on the table. Tell Sarah I know everything, and tell her not to be home when I get back from work. I need time to think. Ashley grabbed my arm. Please don't throw away 7 years over one mistake. I yanked my arm away. The mistake wasn't the problem. The 7 years of lies were. I drove around for hours after that. The world outside my car window seemed distant and unreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Eventually ended up at my buddy Joseph's place. He let me crash on his couch without asking too many questions. When morning came, I had 37 missed calls and texts from Sarah. I finally texted back, I know about San Diego. I know Robert is Mikey's biological father. I need space. Her response was immediate. Please come home. Let me explain. Don't throw away our family. That word, family, hit me hard. Because despite everything, we were still a family. And there was Mikey to consider. I couldn't just disappear from his life because of Sarah's betrayal. I went home that evening to find Sarah sitting on our porch steps. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. She stood when my car pulled in, but didn't approach. Where's Mikey? I asked, keeping my distance. With my parents. I thought we needed to talk privately. I nodded and followed her inside. Our house felt strange, like I was visiting someone else's life. Family photos mocked me from every wall. Was anything real? We sat on opposite ends of the couch. Sarah pulled out a folder and placed it on the coffee table between us. Before you say anything, I need you to see these, she said. Inside were medical documents from 8 years ago, fertility test results, doctor notes, and a signed agreement from a sperm bank. I didn't lie about using a donor, she said quietly. I did go to the clinic. I did choose someone with your characteristics. I did get inseminated there. I stared at the papers, confused. But Robert, happened 2 weeks before the procedure. Her voice cracked. It was one terrible night, not a weekend. Ashley lied to protect me. I was at rock bottom about our fertility issues. I ran into Robert by chance at a bar when I was alone in San Diego. I got drunk. I made the worst mistake of my life. I struggled to process this new information. Then why all the letters? Why was he talking about the baby? Sarah looked confused. What letters? I showed her the pictures on my phone. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. These aren't real, she said firmly. I haven't received letters from Robert, ever, and he definitely never knew about the pregnancy. They were in your college textbook in the attic. She shook her head. I donated all my college books years ago. This doesn't make sense. Now I was thoroughly confused. If the letters are fake, who put them there? And why? Sarah's face suddenly changed as realization dawned. Ashley, check the postmarks. I zoomed in on the photos. There were no postmarks on the envelopes. No stamps either. Why would Ashley do this? I asked. Sarah looked sick. I think she wanted us to break up. That's ridiculous. She's your sister, who's been in love with you since college. I nearly choked. What? No way. She told me once, drunk at her bachelorette party. Said she'd met you first at that frat party, but you only had eyes for me. I thought she was over it, especially after she married William. Things started clicking into place. Ashley's divorce last year, her suddenly spending more time at our house, the looks I dismissed as friendly affection. I need to know the truth, Sarah. The absolute truth. Is there any chance Robert is Mikey's father? Sarah took my hands. I had the procedure 2 weeks after the incident. Dr. Quinn said the timing made it virtually impossible for Robert to be the father. But if you want DNA confirmation, I understand. I thought about the paternity test I'd already done. It proved I wasn't Mikey's biological father, but it didn't prove Robert was. Given what I now knew about Ashley's manipulation, it seemed likely that Mikey was the donor's child, not Robert's. The test had only confirmed what Sarah had already admitted, that I wasn't the biological father. Why did Ashley tell Mikey not to ask me questions? I asked, still needing to understand everything. She's been trying to drive us apart, Sarah said, her voice breaking. My own sister. We spent the night talking through everything. Sarah showed me messages between her and the actual Robert from years ago. Nothing romantic, just occasional friendly check-ins that stopped entirely after she got pregnant. She even offered to reach out to him for a paternity test. I decided that wasn't necessary. Whether the donor was Robert or anonymous donor number 4578, the result was the same. Mikey wasn't biologically mine, but he was still my son. The next day, we invited Ashley over. She came bouncing in like nothing was wrong, gave me a lingering hug that now felt creepy, and sat down expecting our usual family dinner. Where's my favorite nephew? She asked, looking around. Still at my parents', Sarah said coolly. We wanted to talk to you alone. Ashley's smile faltered. About what? I placed the letters on the table. About these. About why you planted fake letters in our attic. About why you told Mikey not to ask me questions. Her face went through a series of expressions. Shock, denial, anger, and finally, defeat. You don't deserve her, Ashley whispered, glaring at me. You never did. Sarah stood up. Ashley, what did you do? Ashley laughed bitterly. What did I do? I tried to open your eyes. He's not even Mikey's real father. I know, I said calmly. I've known for weeks. That threw her. You know? Sarah told me everything. About the fertility issues. About the donor. Everything. Ashley's eyes darted between us. But the letters are obvious fakes, Sarah finished. Robert didn't even know I was pregnant, and I certainly wasn't visiting him in Sydney while carrying another man's child. Ashley's face crumpled. I just wanted me? I asked, disgusted. Were you really willing to destroy your sister's marriage? Your nephew's family? Tears streamed down Ashley's face. You don't understand. I've loved you since that first night at the Kappa house, but you never even saw me. It was always Sarah. Sarah moved to sit beside me, taking my hand. Ashley, you need help. Professional help. This is not normal behavior. What's not normal is pretending to be one big happy family when everything is built on lies, Ashley shouted. I'd had enough. The only person lying here is you. You manipulated my son. You tried to destroy my marriage. You need to leave. Now. Ashley stood, suddenly calm. This isn't over. He deserves to know the truth. Sarah stiffened beside me. What are you talking about? Mikey. He deserves to know his real daddy isn't his daddy at all. I felt Sarah trembling beside me. I squeezed her hand reassuringly. If you go anywhere near my son with this, I will get a restraining order, I said evenly. And I will make sure everyone in the family knows exactly what you tried to do. Ashley stared at us for a long moment, then grabbed her purse. You'll regret this, both of you. After she left, Sarah collapsed against me, sobbing. I can't believe she would do this. My own sister. The next few days were tense. We picked up Mikey from his grandparents' house, trying to act normal while constantly checking our phones for messages from Ashley. We'd agreed not to tell the rest of the family yet, hoping Ashley would get help on her own. Then came the text from Nancy. Is it true? Ashley says you've been lying about Mikey's father. Sarah called her mom immediately. Mom, Ashley is having some issues. Whatever she told you isn't true. I could hear Nancy's voice through the phone, high-pitched and upset. She showed us letters, Sarah. Letters from Robert talking about being the baby's father. Those letters are fake, Mom. Ashley wrote them. Nancy went quiet for a moment. That doesn't make sense. Why would she do that? Sarah looked at me, then at the ground. Because she's in love with my husband and wants to break us up. There was a long silence on the other end. Your father and I are coming over. Now. An hour later, we were sitting in our living room with Dave and Nancy, explaining everything. The fertility issues, the donor, Ashley's deception. I left out the part about Sarah's one-night mistake. Some things parents don't need to know. Dave looked grim. I've noticed Ashley acting off since her divorce, but this is beyond concerning. Nancy was crying quietly. We should have seen it. She's always been so competitive with you, Sarah. What should we do? Sarah asked. I'm worried about what she might tell Mikey. Dave straightened up. Your mother and I will handle Ashley. You two focus on protecting Mikey. The next day, Dave called to tell us Ashley had agreed to see a therapist. Apparently, she'd broken down when confronted by both parents, admitting everything. The fake letters, manipulating Mikey, her obsession with me. I thought that would be the end of it. We could start healing, rebuild our family. Then I picked up Mikey from school. As soon as he got in the car, I knew something was wrong. His usual chatter was missing. He stared out the window silently. Everything okay, buddy? I asked. He looked at me with those big hazel green eyes. Aunt Ashley came to see me at recess. My heart stopped. What did she say? His bottom lip trembled. She said you're not my real dad. That my real dad lives in Australia. Is that true? I pulled the car over, my hands shaking too much to drive. I turned to face him, trying to find the right words. Mikey, I am your real dad. I've been your dad since the day you were born. I tried to keep my voice neutral, but there's something called biology, which is about how babies are made, and in that way, someone else helped make you. His forehead wrinkled in concentration. Like a donor? The man juice thing? Despite everything, I had to smile. Yeah, buddy, like that. Mom and I wanted you so badly, but my man juice couldn't make babies, so we got help. From the Australia man? No, from a doctor and a donor. The Australia man is just someone Mom knew a long time ago. Aunt Ashley is confused about some things right now. Mikey thought for a moment. So you're still my dad? Just not my bio dad? I'm your dad in all the ways that matter. I love you more than anything in the world. He unbuckled his seatbelt and launched himself across the center console to hug me. I love you too, Dad. That night, after Mikey was asleep, Sarah and I made a decision. We filed for a temporary restraining order against Ashley. We met with a lawyer about formal adoption proceedings so I could legally adopt Mikey, even though I was already on his birth certificate. We even talked about moving, maybe to Northern California to get some distance. But most importantly, we decided our family was worth fighting for. The foundation might have been built on a complicated truth, but the love was real. Mikey was my son. Sarah was my wife. And nothing, not Ashley's schemes, not biology, not even the challenges still ahead, could change that. As we move forward, I know there will be difficult days. The restraining order against Ashley turned out to be more complicated than we expected. The cops were sympathetic, but explained we needed more evidence since she hadn't made explicit threats. They basically told us to document everything and come back if she escalated. Super frustrating, but at least we had it on record. Sarah's parents were absolutely devastated by all of this. Nancy called Sarah crying almost daily, blaming herself for not seeing the signs of Ashley's obsession. Dave stopped golfing and barely left the house. He'd been really close with Ashley, always taking her fishing and teaching her about his tools, so this hit him especially hard. I felt terrible for them, but our priority had to be protecting Mikey. Speaking of Mikey, that kid is seriously resilient. After our car talk about donors and bio-dads, he seemed mostly fine. He asked a few follow-up questions over dinner that night. Do I have the Australia man's eyes? And, can I still like dinosaurs if you don't? But then moved on to talking about his friend Jacob's new puppy. Sarah and I exchanged looks of relief over his head. Kids are amazing that way. They can process huge revelations and then immediately switch to what really matters, like puppies. We decided to get Mikey into therapy too, just to make sure he had a safe space to process everything. Dr. Jennifer recommended her colleague Dr. Richard, who specialized in children. Mikey actually loved going because Dr. Richard had this massive collection of Legos in his office. I wish I could say things immediately got better after that, but that's not how real life works. About a week after we filed the restraining order, I got a weird email from a profile I didn't recognize. The subject line was just, Mikey's real father, and my heart sank. I almost deleted it without opening, thinking it was Ashley using a fake account, but curiosity got the better of me. It was from Robert. I don't know if this is appropriate, but Ashley contacted me last week with some very disturbing claims. I wanted to reach out directly, rather than assume anything she said was true. If you're willing to talk, I'd appreciate clearing this up. I showed Sarah immediately. She went pale and sat down hard on the couch. She actually contacted him? This is insane. Should I respond? I asked. Sarah nodded. We need to know what she told him. So I wrote back, keeping it brief. I told him Ashley was having some mental health issues and had been making false claims about our family. I mentioned we had a restraining order pending against her, stretching the truth a bit, and asked what exactly she'd said. His response came the next morning. Apparently, Ashley had messaged him on Facebook, claiming that Sarah had secretly used him as a sperm donor without his knowledge, that I had just found out, and that Mikey wanted to meet his real dad. She'd even sent him pictures of Mikey from her phone. I want to be clear, Robert wrote. I never donated sperm to Sarah or anyone else. I haven't seen Sarah since that random run-in in San Diego years ago. Ashley's story made no sense, but she seemed so convinced I thought I should check. I showed Sarah, and she immediately started typing a reply from my account. She explained the whole situation, her fertility issues, using an anonymous donor, Ashley's obsession with me, and her attempts to break up our family. She apologized for dragging him into our drama and assured him he had absolutely no connection to Mikey. Robert responded with obvious relief. He was married with twins in Sydney and had zero interest in any paternity drama. He also mentioned that Ashley had been messaging him increasingly bizarre things over the past few days, and he'd already blocked her. He wished us well, and that was that. One crisis averted, but Ashley wasn't done yet. The next weekend, we took Mikey to the park to give Sarah's parents a break from their Ashley stress. We were watching Mikey on the monkey bars when Sarah suddenly grabbed my arm. She's here, she whispered. I looked around and spotted Ashley sitting on a bench about 50 feet away, just watching us, not approaching, not calling out, just staring. I'm calling the cops, I said, pulling out my phone. Wait, Sarah said. Let me try talking to her first. Maybe seeing her in person will help me understand what's happening. I didn't like it, but I nodded. I'll stay with Mikey. First sign of trouble, I'm calling. Sarah walked over to Ashley, and I positioned myself between them and Mikey, keeping him distracted with promises of ice cream while still able to see the sisters. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told the story. Sarah talking calmly, hands open. Ashley defensive, then animated, then crying. Sarah put a hand on Ashley's shoulder, and Ashley didn't push it away. After about 20 minutes, Sarah came back looking drained but somewhat relieved. She's agreed to check herself into a treatment center, Sarah said quietly. She's been having episodes since her divorce, not taking her medication. The obsession with you apparently started back in college but got much worse recently. Do you believe her? I asked skeptically. I don't know, but she showed me the intake paperwork for a mental health facility. She's going tomorrow. Mom and Dad are taking her. I just nodded, still keeping an eye on Ashley, who remained on the bench looking at her phone. She also admitted she's been off her meds for bipolar disorder for months, Sarah continued. No one knew she'd been diagnosed 2 years ago, not even Mom and Dad. That explained some things, but I wasn't ready to forgive and forget. We still need boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries. Absolutely, Sarah agreed. But if she's getting help, maybe there's hope for some kind of relationship down the road. For Mikey's sake. I wasn't convinced, but I nodded anyway. Family is complicated. The next few months were actually pretty calm. Ashley checked into the treatment facility as promised and stayed for 6 weeks. Sarah's parents kept us updated on her progress. Apparently, she was responding well to therapy and new medication. The doctors had diagnosed her with bipolar I with some borderline personality traits, which explained the intensity of her fixation on me and her extreme methods. We kept our distance, though. Sarah met with Ashley a few times, always in public places without me or Mikey. According to Sarah, Ashley seemed genuinely remorseful and more stable. She'd admitted to everything. The fake letters, manipulating Mikey, contacting Robert. She'd even shown Sarah journals where she'd documented her obsession with me for years, including detailed fantasies about us being together. Creepy as hell, but at least she was getting help. Meanwhile, our family was healing too. I officially adopted Mikey, which involved a lot of paperwork and a brief court appearance, where the judge mostly just smiled at Mikey and asked if he was happy to have me as his dad. Mikey's enthusiastic, he's the best dad ever, made my heart feel like it might burst. We also found a new therapist for all three of us, Dr. Casey, who specialized in family systems. She helped us figure out how to talk to Mikey about his origin story in age-appropriate ways. We practiced using terms like donor and biological origins instead of real dad or not your real dad. We role-played conversations Mikey might have with friends or teachers about his family. The best advice Dr. Casey gave us was to make Mikey's story something special rather than shameful. He was wanted so much that you went to extraordinary lengths to bring him into your family, she told us. That's something to celebrate, not hide. So we started a new family tradition of Origin Day, the anniversary of when we found out Sarah was pregnant. We told Mikey it was the day we knew our family was beginning. We had cake and looked at baby pictures and told him stories about how excited we were to meet him. It became his second favorite day after his birthday. About 6 months after the whole blow-up, Sarah's parents invited us all for Sunday dinner, including Ashley. They asked us first, of course, and we had a long talk about whether it was the right time. Eventually, we decided to go, but with clear boundaries. No time alone with Mikey, no bringing up the past unless in a therapeutic context, and we would leave at the first first sign of trouble. That dinner was tense, but ultimately okay. Ashley looked different, calmer, less manic energy. She apologized to me privately, not making excuses, but acknowledging the pain she'd caused. She gave Mikey a new dinosaur book, but didn't try to hug him or get too close. She mostly talked with her parents while Sarah and I kept Mikey occupied. Small steps. Things weren't perfect after that, but they slowly improved. Ashley moved to Sacramento for a fresh start and a new job, which honestly was a relief. The distance helped everyone. She still came home for major holidays, and each time got a little less awkward. Sarah maintained a cautious relationship with her, mostly through texts and occasional phone calls. I kept my distance, but stayed civil. As for Sarah and me, rebuilding trust takes time. We still had moments where the past would creep in. I'd see her texting and wonder what secrets she might be keeping. Or she'd notice me looking at Mikey pensively and worry I was questioning my place in his life. But those moments became less frequent. We found ways to strengthen our relationship outside of the crisis. We started doing weekly date nights, something we'd abandoned when Mikey was born. We took an actual vacation, just the two of us, while Mikey stayed with Sarah's parents. We even took a cooking class together, though we both sucked at it, and ended up ordering pizza most nights anyway. Dr. Jennifer helped us figure out the root issues in our relationship. Sarah's fear of abandonment that led her to hide things. My tendency to idealize our life instead of facing problems head on. We weren't perfect, but we were working on it. The adoption papers came through officially on Mikey's 8th birthday. We hadn't planned it that way, just a coincidence of court scheduling, but it felt right. We didn't make a big deal about it in front of his friends at his dinosaur-themed party. But that night, after everyone left, we gave him a special gift, a storybook I'd made about a boy who was so loved that his parents found a magical way to bring him into their family. "That's like me, right?" Mikey asked, looking up from the hand-drawn pages. "I was so wanted you got a donor. Exactly like you," I told him, my throat tight with emotion. "You were worth everything." He hugged me then, sticky with cake and overtired from his party. "I'm glad you're my dad," he whispered. "The bio dad just made me, but you do all the real dad stuff." I held him a little tighter, meeting Sarah's eyes over his head. She was crying silently, but smiling too. That night, after Mikey was asleep, Sarah and I sat on our back porch with glasses of wine. The stars were out, and our neighborhood was quiet, except for the distant sound of someone's wind chimes. "We made it," Sarah said softly, leaning against my shoulder. "I wasn't sure we would." "Me neither," I admitted, "but I'm glad we did, and I meant it." Our family wasn't what I had pictured when we were dating in college. It was messier, more complicated, built on some hard truths and painful growth, but it was real, and it was ours. And at the end of the day, that's what family is. Not the perfect story you imagine, but the imperfect one you fight for.